Okay, so I think we should probably move on in the interest of time. So we looked at the toolkit part, which is the high-end, high-performance computing. People directly use the supercomputers. Now we are looking at the second end of the spectrum for enabling large number of users, the long tail, as Shaowen put it, the gateway, the CyberGIS gateway. And Luc will be leading the presentation first on our integration of PySAL, called CGPySAL, into the CyberGIS gateway.
Thank you. There actually will be 3 presenters. I'll do the warm-up act, and then MyungHwa will present the overview of how the integration was implemented. Then I'll do the dangerous stuff, which is a live demo. And then Shaowen gets the easy part. He gets to conclude at the very end. I'm going to shorten my introduction quite a bit because there is obviously a lot of overlap with what Serge presented. I'm only going to focus on this idea of a spatial econometrics workbench and how it is situated in actually a long evolution of spatial analytical software that goes back to the late 80s, where connecting to Mike's talk, the question was asked, in fact, what is this GIS, and is this a tail wagging a dog, just a tool, or is there something more behind it? And in many ways, I think we are at the same point, or at a similar point, with respect to CyberGIS. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to skip all this stuff. The idea of a spatial econometrics workbench is, you can think of it as an evolution of the analytical software, from very simple add-ons to GIS tools to freestanding desktop applications like SpaceStat, or toolboxes like the MATLAB toolboxes for spatial econometrics, or in R, SPDEP, SPHAT, some of the Bayesian things. And in the same vein, PySAL was developed as a toolbox focusing on a number of spatial analytical methods, and this part in particular focuses on spatial econometrics. So the initial goal was to replicate everything that SpaceStat used to do and do it better, and incorporate what we call modern spatial econometric methods, which use different approaches. They are more scalable, they allow you to analyze much larger data sets, and so on. So what we wanted to do is to move this thinking of tools to a cyber infrastructure environment. And that requires addressing a lot of the same questions that Serge pointed out, thinking about algorithms, thinking about scalability, thinking about vectorization and parallelization at every instance. And one lesson that we learned so far, and I think those of you who work in this arena already know this, there's no one size fits all. And it's not as bad that every separate method needs its own customized application, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of thinking of categories of analyses that can be fit in particular types of parallelization or vectorization, and that's something that is still ongoing. So what we wanted to do, not only to put this on steroids in a cyber infrastructure environment, but also to move it into an environment of collaborative research, which in the social sciences is not so much a tradition yet, but increasingly in interdisciplinary teams, you have teams of physical scientists, natural scientists, social scientists, in different places, working with different computing environments, different type of data. So the idea is, how can we allow our methods and our tools to be useful for those kinds of audiences? And in the process, we leverage PySAL and SPREC. And one thing I want to emphasize is this is the ultimate example of code reuse. There is not a line of SPREC code that was changed to do this implementation. And so I won't talk about PySAL. You can always talk to Serge and I about this. This logo got a life of its own nowadays. So SPREC in PySAL is specialized for spatial regression analysis. So that's a regression analysis that explicitly incorporates space in terms of location, interdependence, and heterogeneity. There's a slew of different advanced methods and a number of different specifications. We incorporate a lot of these. The idea of PySAL, as Serge mentioned, is to develop a code base, a library that then can be delivered in multiple ways. The simplest way is the command line. We won't go there. You saw some examples already. A second way is to develop customized desktop graphical user interfaces for particular types of applications, or if you wish, for particular clients, specific funders. And we have a number of these in the Geoda Center. We have Geoda Space, which addresses specifically the regression analysis. We also have something that deals with space-time analysis of crime data. We have something that deals with point pattern analysis on networks, etc. So these are graphical user interfaces that sit on top of the library. And the design is pretty much similar for all of them. We have the view, which is the user interface. We have the controller, the dispatcher, which basically takes the information from the user interface and then calls the model, the specific code in SPReg to carry out the estimation. And by the way, as Serge mentioned, we're doing something similar for ESRI, same design. On the left will be the ESRI tools interface. There's a dispatcher that then calls the specific code. So what do we need to do? The code we don't touch on the right. We have to maybe customize the dispatcher. I believe there were 2 lines in the dispatcher that had to be changed. And then the main work is the graphical user interface. And since we're short of time, I will not demo Geoda Space as such, but I'll move to the cyber implementation, CGPySAL. So the objective is to reuse this code and put it into a cyber infrastructure environment. What does this require? It requires customized interface. It requires a dispatcher, and it requires middleware to put all these pieces together. And MyungHwa will give you some details on the actual implementation, and then we'll switch to the demo.
In this integration work of between PySAL and CyberGIS Gateway, we identified 4 major challenges. And at the service level, we want to enable distributed and scalable access to PySAL's analytical capabilities. And then also, we want to allow users to load their data and apply these analytical tools their own data set. So to do that, we need some kind of back-end middleware services for managing user data and metadata. And the gateway level, we need some intuitive user interfaces for PySAL's analytical capabilities. And this user interface should provide some consistent experience across different interfaces of PySAL SPReg. And then finally, since this is CyberGIS environment, we want to promote user collaboration in carrying out spatial analysis within the CyberGIS Gateway. So based on these challenges, we have developed some strategies to handle them. To enable the first, the distributed and scalable analysis, what we did is that we just renewed the Geoda Space's architecture as it is. So we wrapped the Geoda Space dispatcher as a web service. Here we use OGC WPS web service standard, since this is a standard and it improves the interoperability between different services. And also we deploy these web services on a cloud-based environment so that more users can easily access without a performance problem. So cyber infrastructure and its cloud component enables scalable load balancing when carrying out this analysis. And so the next challenge is about data management. So here we want users to use different types of data sets. So here we allow users to upload their data from local disk, and also users can provide some public URL to their data sets, and also they can choose some sample data from gateway user interface. So once this data are loaded our data server, they can be retrieved as a public URL, so they can have easy access to their own data set on our server. And also data loaded, metadata about those data sets are automatically retrieved, then they are delivered to interface parts. So this helps users not to do some kind of separate work for the metadata load and entry. And also for better performance, we hosted a dedicated data server only for managing user data and also metadata services. So this is separate from gateway portal and also other service instances, so that it provides better user experience. And in terms of user interface, we want to users experience the same experience as in desktop. So we provide this HTML5-based interactive user interface. And also this user interface design renews the desktop geodaspace's interface. So basically, we just separated geodaspace desktop interface into 3 categories for data loading and model specification and result view, so that in this way, users can have the same experience across different interfaces, here desktop and web. So in doing so, the HTML5 components and also gateway code base was provide interactive user functionality, so it improves user experience. And finally, to facilitate user collaboration within the CyberGIS gateway, we provided functions for sharing regression model specification and result. So once users run this analysis, they can share their result through a reporting tool, and this reporting tool will provide a public URL to report to, and this will be include user comments and other type of extra information. And when your colleague or friends see this report, they can also replicate the analysis by using this shared model as template, so that they can go back to CGPySAL to rerun and modify the analysis. So by using these strategies, here we developed the CGPySAL, and this is the workflow users will take within this with this CGPySAL application. So users will load their application on browser and will specify input files, and then at that point the data files will be loaded our data server, and then the metadata will be returned to the web application in the browser. At that moment, the browser application will complete user interface component, and then users start with specifying regression model and submit their job to cloud-based our web services. Then each web service retrieve data from data server and then start computation, and this computation returns the result. And so this result will be viewed in the gateway portal, and they will be also shared within the gateway portal environment. So Luc will go through this process to demonstrate this application. So this is all about.
Okay, so now comes the dangerous part. I don't know why this is so small, but okay. So this is the portal at CG. So it's sandbox.cg.illinois.edu. And you do need to log in. If you have never logged in before, you need to register. You get a simple form, and then you get a login and a password. The application is featured here. It's one of the 4. If I can see my spatial regression. There's an, they logged me out. And with any luck, I forgot my password. This is the introductory page. It just gives you some, I'm trying to make this as large as I can. Some references, and the real action starts here. So this is the main interface, and this is the same spirit as the GeoDespace interface, but it's a little bit simplified to deal with web real estate, screen real estate. So we're cheating a little bit in this case because we have the data sets already set up, but you can actually upload a data set from your machine to this system or access anything for which you have a URL. The data set that we are using here is something that I've been using for years to illustrate spatial regression methods. It's based on a study that I carried out with a number of criminologists looking at homicide rates at the county level in the US over a period of 40 years. So it will regress homicide rates on a number of environmental characteristics. One of the things that we have not yet implemented, but one will speak about this a little bit, is the actual creation of the spatial weights. Right now, this application takes them as constructed. So again, we have these already set up. Once we select the data, it loads the data and gives you a little check to make sure that this is in fact correct. So if there are problems with the data, if for example your weights have a different dimension from the data set, which could point to islands or some other weird things, this is where this will pop up. So everything is fine. Now we move to the actual model specification. And this mimics the interface for GeoDaSpace. GeoDaSpace, you get a little window with the variables and you pull them into these boxes. These boxes are organized to parallel the specification of the model, dependent variable, explanatory variables, endogenous explanatory variables, instruments, and if you do a spatial analysis of heterogeneity, regime variables. And I'm just going to start with a very simple model. I'll take the homicide rates in 90, and I have 4 explanatory variables, resource deprivation in 90, and I can give you references on all this stuff. This model has been used over and over. Population structure, unemployment rate, and median age. And this is very simple, ordinary least squares model, standard OLS. So we run it.
Is there any way for a user to see what those codes mean? I guess you obviously know that those cryptic numbers mean what they do.
Yeah, there will be a data dictionary. So where you basically you hover over the codes and it tells you what it is. But this is not usual. This is what I mentioned about living dangerously. This should run in about 1 to 2 seconds. So something, I think Anon is messing with the system. But this is obviously not the way it runs.
As Lucas is speaking, you could actually register. It only takes your name and the simple contact information.
Can you kill it?
You're into the system. You could do just what Luc did. Luc actually, for the entire process, probably only just 5 or 6 clicks. You could repeat this process, and if you have scientific questions, you have benefited to ask
It's
Luc
not
in the
running.
conference.
Oh, now it ran. So the output is exactly the same format as for GeoDaSpace. And I just did this demo 2 days ago at Brown University, and it works. Okay, you have to take my word for it. But then I was the only one. Maybe there's several logged into the system. So the interesting part here is that you actually have if you wish, metadata of the model, so you can save this and then rerun this model or share this model with others. You can, the output files are specified as URL, so you can also download these and share these. And then there is a little interface to create a report. This is all pretty much a prototype. You can put some comments in here, like why does this run so slowly, right? And then you send it to somebody else. They can download the URL and redo it. Let me just see if things are any better. So we go back. We have the model, and now I'm going to choose a different type of model. This panel here is exactly the same as it is in GeoDaSpace, so it gives you the choice between standard models, spatial lag models, which is a special spatial regression form error, and a combination. And then as you take another model, it adapts the estimation method, and it provides you with some options for calculating the standard errors. And there are, I think MyungHwa put several of these little tooltips up here already. It's not completely finished, but if we go to run, we'll see if this is any better.
That BMS.
I think it's from the pool of virtual,
Yeah,
virtual
one of the machines.
services that SPREC2 may have
A problem, so that was
something like.
So how can I pick
Just-
another one?
Yeah, just submit it again.
SPREC 4.
Yeah.
See how fast it is? So that's the part that, well, I think Shaowen will talk about that we still have to work on. Basically, we can do any specification, including, if you wish, let me get a little, since we don't have a lot of time, let me just show you the spatial regimes. We specify a regime variable, which is 3 regions of the US. You can specify different options up here. For example, yeah. With the instruments, we can up the spatial order of the instruments that are being used. And then we run it again, and if we're lucky, we have SPREC 4 again. No. Okay. SPREC 1 doesn't work. So let's see. SPREC 5. Also not. Maybe it doesn't like me. He's not going to like this one. Oh, okay. So the regimes part of it is that you have a separate set of estimates for each subregion. This is one case of multi-level modeling. If you wish, in multi-level, you have 2 extremes. One is complete pooling, one is complete separate coefficients. That's what we implement here. But what you see is at the bottom, we have a spatial coefficient that is estimated for the whole set. So this combines spatial dependence with spatial heterogeneity. So we have all these different models that are in SPREG and are in GeoDespace on the desktop. They also run here, and I guess at some point they also will run in ArcGIS Toolbox, right, Steve? So, Shaowen, you want to?
Well, I really encourage you to go ahead to try this out. I think I'm going to speak of easier and safer parts. So while I'll be speaking, you could go to Google CyberGIS, you go directly to cybergis.org, and you click, there's a CyberGIS sandbox on the right hand of your browser screen, the first button. And you click there, you go to what Luc was accessing, and you register. Register takes you a few seconds, and you are automatically granted access to that application Luc was demoing. And then again, the benefit here is as you go through this process, you got the top scientist of this asked here in the conference if you're running into any questions or you want to provide feedbacks. So Luc will be around this couple of days, and as well as the ASU team and the other teams in the project would be able to interact with your inquiries. So to conclude, this is, I think, a very exciting exercise we've done in the project. We actually have done stress test. So I was very interested to see, once you're getting to the system, what is the behavior of the system. And we hope to demonstrate this is a seamless and simultaneous access available to large number of users, and used to be an application you have to download and specify or you use through command line. Now it's graphical user interface, and anybody on the planet could request a registration and access this service. And this is really a
a set of tangible benefits of our integration process, as Luc was alluded to, due to the modular design of the software components involved. The integration effort is actually not that daunting. It's pretty smooth. It is the performance evaluation and the scalability and getting the right pieces into right spots that required effort. So once we were able to show this is functional, the remaining work is still substantial, but showing the feasibility was not that difficult. And some principles we've gained while we're doing this exercise, and we're still learning. As I mentioned, modularity is important, which we benefited from the earlier work in the ASU team, both from Geoda and PySAL. And we understood from this exercise, in order to enable this rapid integration, standard-based services are important. We hope to adopt as much as possible the existing services, but at the same time, we hope this exercise will pave new ways for establishing new services centered on scalable integration of different software components in the geospatial context. Interoperability is something we have to think really hard. This is not only data interoperability, this is a functional interoperability, which is also going to have necessity of considering user interactivity when you're dealing with functional interoperability. Scalability, of course, as Luc was clicking through multiple virtual machine instances, you already saw some work better than others. And this puts the whole exercise into your eyes, into your front, your user interface. So this is very interesting and exciting, because we see many different kinds of users could come into this service for managing their data, access their data, and managing the data in the way we believe that this application should disappear, only providing the problem-solving processes to the users. This is the notion of long-tail science, right? Beyond Luc, as an expert of this, could we enable a mass of scientists or users benefit from this scientific rigorous process without actually getting sort of trapped into all the details of computing and data management. And we benefited also from the consistency in user interfaces across desktop and gateway. This is intentional because we believe having this continuum will enable a community of users emerge. And we knew that there are thousands of users already using this capability from the traditional interface. And the collaborative support, as was already mentioned earlier. So why this is exciting to the project, and I think it's exciting to the community, is because we're really having this spirit of data-rich CyberGIS analytics for everyone. And we are just beginning to see the possibility of doing this through this exercise. Another important aspect in the pathway to future data computational sciences is really reproducibility in scientific results. Having an environment like this gives us opportunity to evaluate whether and how possible is reproducible science. And the model's specifications, results sharing, and incremental improvement of the elements involved in this complex workflow, but presented to user in a simple fashion. And what are the details we need to expose in this workflow and in this user interface so that reproducible science is appreciated and understood. And this interface, as Luc was talking about, could put to the fingertips of many, many users. And we need to understand what are the back-end cyber infrastructure environment and the workflow support and the user interface all together could enable many, many users and the scientists to learn what's happening. And again, we are hoping to have the technical aspects disappear as much as possible at the same time without compromising the rigor of science or the scientific analysis. And the scalability is crucial to all of the factors we have brought up to the table. And you can imagine, as data science is going to vary, different user environments from desktop to gateway, and the back-end computing resources, this poses the most interesting, one of the most interesting, I think, GI science challenge we need to continue to tackle. With that, the sources of funding to enable us to have this much fun so far. Thank you.